Katie Miller stared at the green words flowing across her computer screen. The numbers and letters made no sense to most people, but she understood them perfectly. She had been working on the space station Haven's Rest for 6 months now, and reading alien code had become second nature to her. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago, but she didn't notice. Something important was happening in the secret council meetings, and she needed to know what it was. Katie worked as a communications specialist for the human diplomatic mission. Her job was supposed to be simple: help Ambassador Charles Hayes, talk to the aliens and make sure the messages got sent back to Earth properly. But tonight was different. Tonight, Katie had found something that made her stomach twist with worry. The space station floated in the empty space between star systems. Far from any planet, it was supposed to be neutral ground where different species could meet safely. Humans had only been part of the Galactic Council for 2 years, ever since they made first contact with the Velthari Empire. The Council had 12 member species, and they had been keeping peace in the galaxy for over 3,000 years. At least that's what they told everyone. Katie's fingers moved quickly over her keyboard as she decoded more of the secret messages. The council members thought their communications were completely secure. They didn't know that humans had learned to break their codes months ago. Katie had been the one to figure it out, working late nights in her small office while everyone else slept. What she found made her feel sick. The messages talked about something called Resolution 847. The council leaders were planning to vote on it in 3 days. Katie read through the details carefully, her heart beating faster with each line. The resolution would classify humanity as a developmental threat to galactic peace. It would give the Council permission to attack Earth's colonies before humans could spread further into space. The alien leaders were afraid. Humans had built 12 new colonies in just 2 years. They had developed new technologies that impressed even the oldest Council species. They had explored star systems that no one else had ever visited. To the Council, this looked dangerous. Katie found message after message discussing the human problem. The Velthari hierarch Zektar had written that humans were too aggressive and unpredictable to be allowed to continue expanding. The hegemony's military commander agreed, saying that humans would eventually challenge Council authority if they weren't stopped now. Most disturbing of all, the messages showed that 9 of the 12 Council species had already agreed to vote for the resolution. Only 3 species were still undecided. The vote would pass easily. Katie saved all the messages to a secure drive and stood up from her desk. Her legs felt shaky, and her mouth was dry. Earth needed to know about this immediately. The colonies needed to be warned. The military needed to prepare. She walked quickly through the empty corridors of the station. Most of the diplomatic staff were asleep, but Katie knew that Ambassador Hayes would want to know about this right away, no matter what time it was. The artificial lights made everything look cold and sterile as she hurried toward the communications center. The communications center was the heart of the human section of the station. From here, Katie could send encrypted messages back to Earth using the quantum relay system. The message would reach Earth Defense Command in less than an hour. She sat down at the main console and began typing her report. Priority 1 message to Earth Defense Command, she wrote. Have discovered Council Resolution 847 scheduled for vote in 3 days. Resolution authorizes military action against human colonies. 9 species already committed to yes vote. Recommend immediate defensive preparations and diplomatic intervention. Katie attached all the decoded Council messages to her report. She was about to send it when the lights in the room suddenly went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in red. Katie heard heavy footsteps in the corridor outside. Her heart started beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. Someone was coming and they weren't trying to be quiet about it. The door to the communications center slid open with a hiss. 3 figures walked in, and Katie recognized them immediately. The tall one in the middle was Hierarch Zektar himself, leader of the Velthari Empire. His silver skin reflected the red emergency lights and his large black eyes focused on Katie with obvious anger. Behind him stood 2 Council security officers in full armor. Communications Specialist Miller, Zektar said in his cold, mechanical voice. All Velthari sounded like robots when they spoke human languages. You will step away from the console immediately. Katie's hand moved toward the send button, but one of the security officers was faster. An energy blast from his weapon destroyed the console in a shower of sparks. Katie jumped back, her ears ringing from the explosion. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? Zektar asked, walking closer to her. Did you think your primitive encryption methods could hide your activities from us? We have been watching you for weeks, waiting to see how far you would go. Katie tried to speak, but her throat felt tight with fear. She had been so careful. How had they found out? You are under arrest for espionage against the Galactic Council, Zektar announced. The penalty for this crime is death. Wait, Katie finally managed to say. I want to speak to Ambassador Hayes. I have rights under the Diplomatic Immunity Treaty. Zektar made a sound that might have been laughter. Your ambassador has already been informed. He protested, of course, but the council has voted. You will be executed tomorrow as an example to other species who think they can spy on their betters. The security officers grabbed Katie's arms and pulled her toward the door. She struggled against them, but they were much stronger than she was. This is illegal, she shouted. The council charter says I get a trial. You can't just kill me without proof. The proof is in your computer files, Zektar replied calmly. You decoded classified council communications. You attempted to transmit state secrets to your government. Under emergency war powers, the council can execute spies immediately. As they dragged her through the corridors, Katie realized what had happened. The council hadn't just discovered her spying. They had used it as an excuse to do what they wanted anyway. They were going to kill her to send a message to Earth and every other species in the galaxy. The message was simple. This is what happens when you challenge the council. Ambassador Hayes was waiting in the detention area, his face red with anger. He argued with the council representatives for over an hour, demanding Katie's release and threatening to withdraw Earth from all galactic treaties. But Katie could see in his eyes that he knew it was hopeless. The council had already made their decision. The next morning, they brought Katie to the main assembly hall where representatives from all the member species had gathered. Cameras recorded everything, preparing to broadcast her execution across the galaxy. As she stood before the council tribunal, Katie thought about her family back on Earth. She thought about all the colonies full of people who had no idea what was coming. When they asked if she had any final words, Katie looked directly into the camera. Tell Earth what they really think of us, she said clearly. Tell them the council sees us as nothing more than animals to be put down when we get too smart or too strong. Tell them that everything we believed about galactic civilization was a lie. The energy beam hit her a moment later. Katie Miller, 22 years old, died far from home in a room full of aliens who thought humans were beneath their notice. But her message was already racing toward Earth at the speed of light, and soon the council would learn that killing a human girl had been the worst mistake they could possibly make. Admiral Jake Thompson stood in the command center of New Geneva, Earth's largest orbital defense station. The massive screens around him showed news feeds from across human space, and every single one was showing the same horrible video. Katie. Miller's execution played over and over again, her final words echoing through the speakers. Jake had watched the video 12 times already, and each time it made him angrier. The young woman had died with courage, looking straight into the camera as she delivered her message to Earth. Now that message was spreading like wildfire across every human colony, every space station, every ship in the fleet. Sir, we're getting calls from every major city on Earth, reported Lieutenant Amy Foster from her communications station. The president wants to speak with you immediately. Jake nodded and walked to his private office. The secure line to the White House was already waiting for him. President Lisa Rodriguez appeared on his screen, and Jake could see the stress lines around her eyes. She had been president for only 8 months, and now she faced the biggest crisis in human history. Jake, I need your honest assessment, she said without any greeting. What are our military options? Limited, Jake replied truthfully. The Council has been building their fleets for 3,000 years. They have 12 species working together, with technology we're still trying to understand. In a straight fight, they would crush us. President Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. What about our colonies? Can we defend them? Some of them, maybe. The newer colonies are too far out and too lightly defended. If the Council wants to attack them, we can't stop it. Jake paused, thinking about the millions of families who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. But maybe we don't have to fight them. Maybe we can still solve this with diplomacy. The president shook her head. I've been trying diplomacy for the past 6 hours. I sent a formal message to the Council demanding an apology and reparations for Katie's murder. Do you know what they sent back? Jake waited. They said we should be grateful they only killed one human instead of destroying our homeworld. Hierarch Zektar himself sent a personal message saying that humans are violent primitives who need to learn their place in the galactic order. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. What's our response? I'm withdrawing Earth from all galactic treaties immediately. No more diplomatic missions, no more trade agreements, no more pretending. We're part of their civilized galaxy. But I need to know what happens next, Jake. If diplomacy fails completely, what are you prepared to do? Before Jake could answer, his aide knocked on the door. Admiral, urgent message from Dr. Alex Chen. Jake opened the channel, and Dr. Chen's face appeared on a second screen. The scientist looked tired and worried. Chen had been part of the first contact team that met the Velthari 2 years ago. He still believed that peaceful cooperation was possible. Admiral President Rodriguez, I've been watching the news feeds. This is a tragedy, but we can't let emotion drive us to war. The Council represents 12 advanced civilizations. If we fight them, humanity will be wiped out. They already want to wipe us out, Jake said. Katie found their secret resolution. They're planning to attack our colonies whether we fight back or not. But maybe we can change their minds, Dr. Chen argued. Maybe if we show them that we're willing to limit our expansion, willing to accept some oversight of our colonies, they'll see that we're not a threat. President Rodriguez looked between the two men on her screens. Alex, I appreciate your perspective, but I've been talking to world leaders all morning. The public is demanding action. Katie Miller's parents are on every news channel asking why. Their daughter had to die for trying to warn Earth about an attack. How do I tell them we're going to negotiate with her killers? Because the alternative is the end of human civilization, Dr. Chen said quietly. Jake had heard enough. Alex, with respect, you're wrong. The Council doesn't see us as equals to negotiate with. They see us as animals that got too smart and need to be put down. Katie's execution wasn't about justice or law. It was about sending a message. Then what do you suggest? Dr. Chen asked. I suggest we send our own message, Jake replied. But first, we need to see how far they're willing to push this. The answer came 3 hours later. Lieutenant Foster burst into Jake's office without knocking. Sir, we're receiving a broadcast from the Council. It's being transmitted to every human settlement in the galaxy. Jake rushed back to the command center. The main screen showed Hierarch Zektar standing in the Council chambers. Behind him, representatives from all 12 species sat in their ceremonial seats. People of Earth, Zektar began in his cold, mechanical voice. Your government has chosen to withdraw from galactic civilization rather than accept responsibility for the criminal actions of your spy. This is unacceptable. Jake felt his stomach drop. This wasn't going to be good. Effective immediately, the Galactic Council is implementing a complete economic blockade of human space. No Council species will trade with you. No Council ships will travel through your territory. No human ships will be permitted in Council space. The Hierarch paused, his black eyes staring directly into the camera. Furthermore, the Council demands that Earth surrender all colony ships currently under construction and submit to Council oversight of any future human expansion. You have 72 hours to comply with these demands. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in complete silence. Jake stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. A complete blockade would cripple human space. Earth imported exotic materials from alien traders. The colonies depended on supply ships from the homeworld. Without trade, some of the newer settlements would starve, but surrendering the colony ships would be even worse. Those ships represented humanity's future, their chance to spread among the stars and build something greater than Earth alone. Giving them up would mean accepting permanent second-class status in the galaxy. Sir, Lieutenant Foster said quietly. "General Paul Morrison is requesting an emergency meeting with you and the President." Jake nodded. Morrison was the head of Earth's military forces, and he had been pushing for a more aggressive response to alien threats since the first contact. If the Council wanted a war, Morrison would be ready to give them one. The meeting took place an hour later in a secure conference room deep inside New Geneva. President Rodriguez appeared on the main screen, while General Morrison sat across from Jake at the metal table. "The Council has made their position clear," Morrison said without waiting for anyone else to speak. "They don't want diplomacy. They want submission. Well, I have news for them. Humanity doesn't submit." "Paul, we can't fight 12 species at once," President Rodriguez said. "We'll lose." "Maybe," Morrison replied, "but we'll make them pay for it. And maybe, just maybe, we'll surprise them." Jake looked between the President and the General. "There is another option. Something we've been working on quietly for the past 2 years. A contingency plan in case first contact went badly." President Rodriguez leaned forward. "What kind of contingency plan?" "The kind that evens the odds," Jake said. "Dr. Sarah Williams has been running a classified project since we first met the aliens. She calls it the Phoenix Project." "What does it do?" Morrison asked. Jake was quiet for a long moment. What he was about to tell them would change everything. Once they knew about Phoenix, there would be no going back to the dream of peaceful coexistence with the galaxy. "It gives us the ability to fight back," he said finally. "And if we have to use it, the Council will learn that humanity's restraint was a choice, not weakness." President Rodriguez stared at him through the screen. "How long do we have to decide?" 72 hours, according to their ultimatum. "Then we have 72 hours to choose between slavery and war." Jake nodded. "Yes, ma'am. But there's something else you should know. Dr. Williams has been monitoring Council communications since Katie's execution. They're already mobilizing their fleets. Whether we surrender or fight, they're planning to attack our colonies anyway. The ultimatum is just for show." The room went silent. Finally, President Rodriguez spoke. "Then we're already at war. We just haven't started fighting yet." Jake looked at General Morrison, who was smiling grimly. "Ma'am, with your permission, I'd like to activate the Phoenix Project." "Do it," the President said. "And Jake, make sure the Council remembers that they started this." As the meeting ended, Jake walked to the window of his office and looked out at Earth below. Somewhere down there, Katie Miller's parents were grieving for their daughter. Soon, millions of other families might be doing the same. But the Council had made their choice when they killed a human girl to prove a point. Now they would learn what humans were really capable of when someone hurt their own. Dr. Sarah Williams walked through the underground corridors of Facility 7. Located 3 miles beneath the surface of Mars. The red planet had been chosen for the Phoenix Project because it was far from prying alien eyes and close enough to Earth for quick communication. For 2 years, Sarah had been working on technologies that she hoped would never be needed. Now it looked like they would need everything. The facility buzzed with activity as hundreds of scientists and engineers prepared for war. Sarah's assistant, Dr. Kevin Ross, hurried to catch up with her as she entered the main laboratory. "Sarah, we just got word from Earth Defense Command. Admiral Thompson wants a full briefing on all Phoenix technologies within 6 hours. Sarah nodded and looked around the lab. 3 separate projects were running at the same time, each one designed to give humanity a fighting chance against superior alien forces. She had been hoping for at least another year of development time, but the Council had forced their hand. "Start with the stealth systems," she told Kevin. "Colonel Parker needs those ships ready first." The stealth technology was the most important part of the Phoenix Project. Human ships were smaller and weaker than Council vessels, but if they couldn't be detected, they could strike without warning and disappear before the enemy could respond. Sarah had based the design on quantum field manipulation, something the aliens had never encountered before. Sarah walked to the next section of the lab where Colonel Ben Parker was inspecting the first completed stealth ship. The vessel was only 50 meters long, much smaller than a regular warship, but it packed enough firepower to destroy targets 10 times its size. "How many ships do we have ready?" Sarah asked. 47 completed with 3 more finishing today, Parker replied. Each ship has a crew of 12. We've been training volunteers for months, people who understand they might not come home. Sarah looked at the sleek black hull of the ship. It didn't look like much, but the quantum stealth field could make it completely invisible to Council sensors. The aliens would never see the attack coming. What about the weapon systems? The quantum disruption cannons are working perfectly. We tested them last week on an old asteroid. The target didn't just explode, it fell apart at the molecular level. Council shields won't be able to stop them. Sarah nodded and moved to the third section of the lab. This was where her team had developed the most dangerous part of the Phoenix project, something they called the Erasure Protocol. She hoped they would never have to use it, but if humanity was going to be wiped out anyway, at least they could take their enemies with them. Dr. Ross was waiting for her with a worried expression. Sarah, are you sure about this? The Erasure Protocol isn't just a weapon. It's something that could change the nature of reality itself. Sarah looked at the 12 devices lined up on the work table. Each one was about the size of a briefcase, but they contained technology that humanity had discovered in ancient ruins on the edge of known space. The ruins were billions of years old, left behind by a species that had vanished long before the Council was formed. Kevin, the Council wants to erase us from existence. If we're going to die anyway, shouldn't we at least make sure our killers don't get to celebrate? Before Kevin could answer, an alarm sounded throughout the facility. Sarah's communication device buzzed with an urgent message from Earth Defense Command. All Phoenix personnel report to stations immediately. Operation Silent Thunder is now active. Sarah felt her heart start beating faster. Operation Silent Thunder was the 3-phase plan that Admiral Thompson had developed with her help. Phase 1 would be surgical strikes on military targets. Phase 2 would target infrastructure and government facilities. Phase 3 was the Erasure Protocol. She hoped they would never reach Phase 3. Sarah hurried to the command center where Admiral Thompson appeared on the main screen from his flagship. Behind him, she could see the bridge crew preparing for battle. Dr. Williams, I need to know the status of all Phoenix technologies. The stealth fleet is ready for deployment, Sarah reported. 50 ships with full crews and weapons. The quantum disruption systems are tested and functional. The Erasure Protocol devices are prepared but not armed. Good. Colonel Parker, are your people ready? Parker stepped forward. Yes, sir. We've identified 17 high-value targets across Council. Space. My pilots know the risks and they're ready to go. Sarah watched as the Admiral made the decision that would change everything. Phase 1 is authorized. Launch the Ghost Fleet. The next few hours passed in tense silence. Sarah monitored the communications from the command center as 50 human ships traveled through Council space completely undetected. The aliens had no idea what was coming. Meanwhile, intelligence operative Maya Johnson was working on her own part of the plan. Maya had spent months infiltrating Council territory using stolen alien technology to disguise herself. She looked like a member of the hegemony species, complete with their blue skin and 4 arms. Maya had established a network of human agents across 12 worlds. Most of them were diplomats or traders who had been in Council space when the crisis began. Now they were gathering intelligence about military positions, government buildings, and most importantly, the exact locations of the Council homeworlds. The information Maya's network provided would be crucial for Phase 2 and Phase 3 of Operation Silent Thunder. Back on Mars, Sarah received the first reports from the Ghost Fleet. Colonel Parker's voice came through the speakers clearly. Target Alpha destroyed. No enemy response detected, moving to Target Beta. Similar reports came in from all 50 ships. The Velthari Military Academy, where Hierarch Zektar had trained, was reduced to rubble. The hegemony's main shipyard exploded in a ball of fire. Council command centers across 17 star systems were attacked simultaneously. Sarah watched the tactical display as red dots marked successful strikes. Each red dot represented a facility that had taken the aliens decades or centuries to build, now destroyed in minutes by ships they never saw coming. Phase 1 complete, Admiral Thompson announced. All Ghost Fleet ships have returned to safe positions. Council losses are estimated at 60% of their forward military infrastructure. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The Council would respond with massive force, probably sending their grand fleet toward Earth. That's when Phase 2 would begin. Her communication device buzzed with a message from Maya Johnson. Package delivered to all 12 locations. Awaiting. Further orders. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Maya had successfully placed the erasure protocol devices on each of the Council homeworlds. The devices were designed to look like ordinary cargo containers, completely undetectable by alien security systems. If they had to activate Phase 3, 12 entire civilizations would simply cease to exist. Dr. Ross approached her with another update. Sarah, we're getting reports from our spy network. The Council is mobilizing everything they have. Over 10,000 ships are heading toward Earth. Sarah nodded. She had expected this. The Council would try to end the war quickly by destroying humanity's homeworld. What they didn't know was that Admiral Thompson was waiting for them with Earth's entire defense fleet and some surprises of his own. Any word from the diplomatic channels? Sarah asked. The Council sent one message. Ross replied. They said humanity has one last chance to surrender unconditionally. If we don't respond within 12 hours, they'll glass every human world in the galaxy. Sarah looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Council fleet. 10,000 ships against humanity's few hundred. In a normal battle, it would be a massacre. But this wouldn't be a normal battle. Have they responded to our demonstration? She asked. Hierarch Zektar sent a personal message to Admiral Thompson. He said the attacks were the desperate actions of a dying species, and that the Council would make humanity pay for every destroyed building. Sarah smiled grimly. The aliens still didn't understand what they were dealing with. They thought the Ghost Fleet attacks were humanity's best effort, a last desperate strike before inevitable defeat. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Kevin, begin preparations for Phase 2, she ordered. And make sure the erasure protocol devices are ready for activation. Something tells me we're going to need them. As the Council's grand fleet approached Earth, Sarah wondered if Katie Miller could have imagined what her death would unleash. The young woman had died trying to warn Earth about an attack. Now her sacrifice was about to trigger the complete destruction of the civilizations that had killed her. The Council had wanted to teach humanity about power and respect. Soon they would learn that lesson themselves, in the most final way possible. Admiral Jake Thompson stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Retribution, watching the largest fleet in galactic history approach Earth. The tactical display showed over 10,000 Council ships spread across space like a deadly swarm. Each ship was larger than anything in Earth's fleet, armed with weapons that could destroy cities. But Jake wasn't afraid. For the first time since Katie Miller's execution, he was actually smiling. Admiral, the Council fleet will reach Earth's outer defense zone in 6 hours, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander David Stone. They're maintaining formation and broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies. Let them broadcast, Jake replied. Are our ships in position? Yes, sir. All 400 vessels of Earth Defense Fleet are holding position near Luna. The Ghost Fleet is standing by in stealth mode throughout the solar system. Jake nodded and opened a channel to the Council fleet. Admiral Korthvan of the Hegemony appeared on his screen. The alien commander had 4 arms and blue skin that looked almost metallic under the bridge lights. His expression showed the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. Admiral Thompson, Korthvan said in heavily accented English, I offer you one final chance to surrender. Your recent terrorist attacks against civilian targets have sealed humanity's fate, but I am authorized to spare Earth itself if you submit immediately. Jake almost laughed. Civilian targets? The Ghost Fleet had specifically avoided anything. That wasn't military. The Council was already rewriting history to make themselves look like victims. Admiral Korthvan, I have a counteroffer. Turn your ships around and leave human space immediately. Go back to your homeworlds and tell the Council that humanity wants peace, but we're prepared for war. The alien commander made a sound that might have been laughter. You face the combined might of 12 species, Admiral. Your small fleet cannot possibly stand against us. This will be a massacre. You're right, Jake agreed. It will be a massacre, but not the kind you're expecting. Jake cut the communication and turned to his crew. All ships prepare for battle. Operation Silent Thunder Phase 2 is now active. What Admiral Korthvan didn't know was that Jake had no intention of fighting a traditional space battle. The Council fleet was too large and too powerful for that. Instead, Jake had positioned his ships to draw the aliens into a trap. The Council fleet approached Earth with overwhelming confidence. They had fought dozens of species over the centuries, and none had ever been able to resist their combined firepower. The humans would surrender after seeing the hopelessness of their situation, or they would be destroyed quickly. They were expecting Earth's ships to either run away or group together for a desperate last stand. What they found instead surprised them. Jake's fleet was spread out in a loose formation near Earth's moon. The ships looked small and helpless compared to the massive Council vessels. But as the aliens moved in for the kill, the human ships began moving in ways that seemed impossible. The UES Retribution suddenly accelerated to speeds that should have crushed its crew. It dodged between Council ships like a fighter plane, too fast and agile for the larger vessels to target effectively. The other human ships did the same, weaving through the enemy formation with impossible grace. How are they moving like that? Admiral Korthvan demanded from his command ship. Their ships should not be capable of such maneuvers. His science officer, a member of the insectoid Zek-3 species, studied the readings carefully. Sir, they appear to be using some form of inertial dampening technology. Our sensors show no gravitational fields, but their ships are not affected by the acceleration forces. Admiral Korthvan felt the first touch of worry. Destroy them quickly. Focus all fire on their flagship. But focusing fire on the human ships was easier said than done. The moment a Council vessel locked weapons on a human target, the target would simply vanish from sensors. Stealth technology that the aliens had never seen before made the human ships flicker in and out of existence. Jake watched from his bridge as the Council fleet tried desperately to hit targets they couldn't see or track. All ships, open fire. The human vessels suddenly reappeared throughout the Council formation and began firing their quantum disruption weapons. The aliens watched in horror as their shields simply ceased to exist. The energy barriers that had protected them for thousands of years collapsed instantly when hit by the strange new weapons. Council ships began exploding all around the formation. The quantum disruption cannons didn't just damage their targets. They tore them apart at the molecular level. Massive dreadnoughts that had ruled space for centuries broke apart like toys. Impossible, Admiral Korthvan whispered, as he watched his fleet being destroyed around him. These are primitive humans. They only discovered space travel 50 years ago. How do they have technology superior to ours? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Alex Chen's face appeared on communication screens throughout the Council fleet. The human scientist looked sad but determined as he addressed the alien commanders. Admirals of the Council fleet, this is Dr. Chen of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. What you're seeing is the result of 2 years of preparation. We hoped never to use these weapons, but you forced our hand when you murdered Katie Miller. Dr. Chen paused, letting his words sink in. The technology you're facing was not developed by humans alone. We found it in ancient ruins left by a species that existed long before your council was formed, a species that apparently knew how to fight wars on a scale you can't imagine. On his flagship, Admiral Korthvan realized that half his fleet was already gone. The surviving ships were scattered and demoralized, their crews panicking as their most advanced weapons proved useless against human technology. All ships retreat, he ordered. Fall back to the outer system and regroup. But Jake wasn't finished with them yet. Ghost Fleet, you are cleared to engage. 50 stealth ships suddenly appeared throughout the retreating Council formation. Colonel Ben Parker's voice came through the communications clearly. Target practice, people. Make every shot count. The Ghost Fleet tore through the retreating Council ships like wolves among sheep. The aliens tried to fight back, but they couldn't hit targets they couldn't see. Ship after ship exploded as the quantum disruption weapons found their marks. Within 4 hours, the largest fleet in galactic history was completely destroyed. Less than 100 Council ships managed to escape, and most of those were badly damaged. Admiral Korthvan's flagship was among the survivors, limping away from Earth with its engines barely functioning. Jake opened a communication channel to the fleeing ships. "Admiral Korthvan, I want you to deliver a message to the Council. Tell them that humanity offered friendship, and you responded with murder and threats. Tell them that our restraint was a choice, not weakness." The alien commander's image appeared on screen, his forearms shaking with rage and fear. "This is not over, human. The Council has resources you cannot imagine. We will return with a force that will burn your world to ash." "No," Jake replied, calmly. "You won't. Because if any Council ship approaches human space again, we will activate Phase 3 of our response plan. And trust me, Admiral, you don't want to know what Phase 3 involves." As the surviving Council ships fled toward their homeworlds, Jake felt no satisfaction in the victory. Thousands of beings had died in the battle, and thousands more would die before this was over. But the Council had made their choice when they killed Katie Miller. Dr. Sarah Williams appeared on Jake's private communication screen from her facility on Mars. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from Maya's network. The Council survivors are gathering on their homeworlds preparing for a siege. They think their fortress worlds are impregnable." Jake nodded grimly. "Are the erasure protocol devices in position?" "All 12 devices are ready for activation. Maya's people have confirmed placement on every Council homeworld. The devices are undetected and fully operational. How long until we can activate them?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Jake, once we activate the erasure protocol, there's no going back. We'll be wiping out entire civilizations. Billions of lives will simply cease to exist." Jake looked out at the debris field that had once been the Council's grand fleet. Space was filled with the wreckage of ships and the bodies of aliens who had come to destroy humanity's homeworld. "Sarah, they came here to commit genocide. They wanted to erase us from existence because we had the audacity to explore space and build colonies. They murdered a young woman whose only crime was trying to warn her people about an attack." He paused, thinking about Katie Miller's parents and all the other families who had lost loved ones to Council arrogance. "If they want to make this a war of extinction, then we'll show them what extinction really looks like. Prepare Phase 3. As Earth's fleet began cleaning up the battlefield, Admiral Korthvan's damaged flagship limped toward Velthari space. The alien commander was already composing his report to Hierarch Zektar, trying to explain how the most powerful fleet in galactic history had been destroyed by a species the Council considered primitive. What he didn't know was that Maya Johnson was already on his homeworld, waiting with 11 other human agents to deliver the final message in humanity's response to Katie Miller's murder. Hierarch Zektar stood in his private chamber deep beneath the surface of Velthara Prime, the homeworld of his species. The chamber was carved from solid rock and surrounded by energy shields that could stop any known weapon. For 3,000 years, no enemy had ever reached this place. Above him, the surviving ships of the Council's Grand Fleet had arrived with news of their defeat at Earth. Zektar could barely believe the reports. 10,000 ships destroyed by a few hundred human vessels. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was overwhelming. The other Council leaders were gathering in their own fortress worlds, preparing for a siege that might last for years. They all believed their homeworlds were safe. Each planet was protected by massive defense stations, energy shields, and fleets of guardian ships. Even if the humans had superior technology, they couldn't possibly attack 12 different worlds at the same time. Zektar was reviewing the battle reports when his communication system activated. A hologram appeared in the center of his chamber, showing a human female he didn't recognize. She had dark hair and wore the uniform of an Earth intelligence officer. "Greetings, Hierarch Zektar," the woman said calmly. "My name is Maya Johnson. I'm currently standing on the surface of your homeworld, about 3 miles from your current location." Zektar felt a cold shock run through his body. No human should be able to reach Velthara Prime, much less penetrate the security around his fortress. "Impossible," he said. "Our sensors show no human ships in this system. Our security forces would have detected any intruders immediately." Maya smiled. "Your sensors are designed to detect alien technology. They're not very good at spotting disguised humans. I've been living on your world for 6 months now, preparing for this moment. Zektar activated his security systems, but Maya continued talking before he could call for help. Before you alert your guards, you should know that I'm not alone. 11 other human agents are currently on the other council homeworlds having similar conversations with your fellow leaders. We're all broadcasting on the same frequency so everyone can hear what I'm about to tell you. Additional holograms flickered to life around Maya, showing the other human agents. Zektar recognized the locations behind them. Each agent was standing on one of the council homeworlds, somehow having penetrated the most secure locations in the galaxy. "This is Agent Carter reporting from Hegemony Prime," said a tall man with blonde hair. "I'm currently in the capital city, about 2 blocks from the High Council building." "Agent Rodriguez here, broadcasting from Zek 3 Central," added a woman with short black hair. "Beautiful planet you have here. Shame about what's going to happen to it." One by one, the other agents reported in. Each one was on a different council homeworld. Each one had somehow bypassed security systems that were supposed to be impenetrable. Zektar felt panic rising in his chest. "What do you want? If you think you can threaten the council with a handful of spies, you're mistaken. Our security forces will hunt you down within hours." Maya shook her head. "We're not here to threaten anyone, Hierarch. We're here to deliver a message. Actually, we're here to deliver something much more permanent than a message." She reached into a bag at her feet and pulled out a device about the size of a briefcase. It was completely black and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Zektar had never seen anything like it. "This is an erasure protocol device," Maya explained. "It uses technology that we found in ancient ruins, created by a species that existed long before your council was formed. The beings who made this technology understood something that you never learned." Zektar stared at the device. "What does it do?" "It erases things from existence," Maya said simply. "Not just destroying them or vaporizing them, actually removing them from reality itself. When activated, this device will phase your entire planet out of normal space-time. Velthara Prime and everyone on it will simply cease to exist." The other agents held up identical devices. 12 black boxes, one for each council homeworld. "You're bluffing," Zektar said, but his voice was shaking. "No such technology is possible." Agent Carter spoke from Hegemony Prime. "The species that built this technology wiped themselves out using it. We found their ruins on the edge of known space along with detailed records of how the devices work. They created 12 prototype devices before they realized what they had done. The ruins showed what happened," Agent Rodriguez added. "They used the devices against an enemy species, and the enemy retaliated by using the same technology against them. Both civilizations were completely erased from existence. The only reason we know they ever existed is because they left automated records in empty space." Maya stepped closer to her camera. "We're offering you the same choice they had, Hierarch. You can order an immediate ceasefire and begin negotiations for peace, or you can continue this war and face complete extinction." Zektar tried to think clearly despite his fear. "Even if such weapons exist, you would never use them. Humans claim to be civilized. You wouldn't commit genocide against billions of innocent beings." "You're right about one thing," Maya said. "We don't want to use these devices. But you made the choice for us when you murdered Katie Miller and declared war on humanity." She paused, her expression becoming deadly serious. "However, we're not completely without mercy. Our intelligence networks have identified which council species voted for Katie's execution and which ones abstained. The 3 species that refused to participate in her murder are not targets today. 3 of the agent holograms flickered and disappeared, leaving only 9. The Corvani, the Threk, and the Alteri will be spared," Maya continued. "Their homeworlds are safe because they chose not to be part of your war crimes. But the 9 species that voted to kill an innocent human girl will face the consequences of that choice." Zektar felt the walls of his chamber closing in around him. "You can't do this. The Council has existed for 3,000 years. We've brought peace and order to the galaxy. Peace and order built on the threat of violence against anyone who challenged you," Maya replied. "Katie Miller challenged you by discovering your plans to attack human colonies, so you killed her as an example to other species. Well, Hierarch, today you become the example." Maya knelt down and activated her device. The black box began to emit a low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The erasure protocol devices are now active," she announced. "You have approximately 60 seconds before they reach full power and activate simultaneously." Zektar lunged for his communication controls, trying to contact his fleet commanders or security forces, but his equipment was no longer responding. The humming sound was growing louder and the air in his chamber seemed to be vibrating. "Wait," he shouted. "We can negotiate. The Council will pay reparations for the girl's death. We'll withdraw from human space. We'll do whatever you want." Maya shook her head sadly. "Negotiations were possible 3 days ago before you executed Katie Miller. They were possible yesterday before you sent 10,000 ships to destroy Earth. But you chose war over diplomacy at every turn." The humming reached a crescendo, and Zektar felt reality itself beginning to shift around him. The walls of his chamber started to become transparent, as if they were fading out of existence. 40 seconds, Maya announced. "Hierarch, I want you to understand something in your final moments. This isn't revenge. This is consequences. You killed a human girl to prove that the Council was more powerful than humanity. Today, humanity is proving that power without wisdom leads to extinction." Zektar tried to run from his chamber, but his legs wouldn't move properly. The floor beneath his feet was becoming insubstantial, and he could see through his own hands. 10 seconds, Maya said. "Goodbye, Hierarch. May whatever comes after death teach you the mercy you never showed to others." The humming stopped suddenly, and everything went white. Across the galaxy, 9 planets simply vanished. Velthara Prime, homeworld of the Velthari Empire, ceased to exist. Hegemony Prime, Zek3 Central, and 6 other worlds where billions of beings lived and loved and dreamed were erased from reality as if they had never been. The only trace left behind was empty space where star systems used to be. Maya Johnson found herself floating in a small escape pod, watching the empty coordinates where Velthara Prime had existed moments before. Similar pods carried the other human agents away from coordinates that no longer contained planets. Her communication system activated, and President Rodriguez appeared on the screen from Earth. "Agent Johnson, report status." "Mission complete, Madam President. 9 Council homeworlds have been successfully erased. The 3 species that abstained from Katie's execution are unharmed as planned." President Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. "Any survivors from the target worlds?" "None. Possible, ma'am. The erasure protocol doesn't leave survivors. The planets and everyone on them no longer exist in any form." "And the remaining Council species?" Maya checked her instruments. "Scattered fleets throughout the galaxy, but their command structures are gone. Most are already broadcasting surrender messages. The war is over." President Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Maya, you and your team did what had to be done. Katie Miller's death has been answered.